But suffice it to say that in many ways, the soul of humanity is in a fight for its life. It's in a fight for its existence, as it has been for millennia. We call it the eternal conflict between good and evil for the souls of humanity. But the development of AI and degenerative AI, or what they call generative AI, the AI like large language models, the AI that produces images, and the AI that produces text, things like ChatGPT, things like Midjourney, and now it's branching out into video as well. AI is gunning for humanity's creatives. The AI tech bros, the people behind this technology and the people using this technology, are at the moment using it to create completely derivative works based on actual human creations, actual human creative capital. And in the process, they're producing derivative works devoid of any genuine artistic merit and devoid of soul, devoid of spirit, while the human creators are languishing. They're watching as their livelihoods dry up, and they're watching as their creations, their creative capital, their output basically gets exploited without any compensation, without any recompense whatsoever. And it is, in many ways, uh, as we describe in our book as well, like it's the end game of the Black Lodge, right? To essentially replace human beings with what they believe are sentient AI, or that's their goal, is to create sentient AI. And we have begun working with a group to raise more awareness around this issue, the ethical, the social, the economic, and the metaphysical consequences of generative AI, which we call degenerative AI. And we don't call it that ironically either, because that's what it is. AI art is derivative and it's revisionist. So as we get closer to the actual launching of the campaign, then we'll be sharing more information with you about it. But the relevance of today's talk to that pursuit is this notion that the struggle for the soul of humanity is reaching its climax. And yes, this campaign is conceived and directed for the benefit of those suffering the most, the artists themselves, as they are seeing their livelihood and their futures and their very lives drying up before their eyes. Our approach with it is based on today's talk, is the suffering of artists and the suffering of those who appreciate fine art, high art, truly creative, truly genuine works of inspired imagination and universal truth and universal meaning, those who appreciate being moved by their music, by their films, by their images, by their stories, by their poetry. That's not everyone. The vast majority of so-called consumers just consume their media. They consume content. But there is a subset of the population that doesn't just consume content. They're starving right now because the streaming platforms and the corporatization of media is mostly about churning out content, just churning it out. And we talked about this last week, and we put out a short video about it, that when generative AI is applied to that corporate model, the corporations are rubbing their hands together. They can't wait to get their hands on this technology. They can't wait for the technology to progress to a point where its output is acceptable enough to put on streaming platforms, to put on television, to put on music services, and to put in movie theaters. But when that happens, the human spirit will be completely eradicated and wiped from culture, from today's modern culture. All of media will have been completely sanitized and completely bleached and utterly devoid of the human spirit. which is the Black Lodge's goal and end game and purpose. The suffering that will bring, or the prospect of such an eventuality, and the struggle against such an eventuality becoming reality may be enough to unite, to inspire and unite enough individuals who are even marginally awake enough to know that the garbage that Disney has been pumping out is just that, garbage. It's utterly devoid of truth and beauty, not like what Disney used to make, even just a decade ago when they made Moana, or before that, or a decade before that when they made The Lion King, and decades before that when they made Sleeping Beauty and Pinocchio. Now what they're pumping out is it's just content. So we are involved in an undertaking which may evolve as time goes on into a much more significant activity of revelation, of education, and of inspiration and motivation. And it will be all around the struggle of the human spirit to remain relevant, to remain dominant over the lives of humanity, which is what it should be, how it's supposed to be. The human spirit is what's supposed to be guiding humanity and guiding humanity's actions and direction, because that human spirit comes from the Logos, the Christ, the divine spirit, the great spirit, the Native Americans call it, and indigenous peoples around the world refer to it as the great spirit, because the human spirit is a spark, is an aspect, but it's like the tip of a root that connects back into the trunk of the tree. Well, the trunk of the tree and all of its branches and all of its fruit and all of its roots represents the great spirit, the great tree of life, Yggdrasil. And we are just one little capillary of one little root system off of one little root. And yet it is the tree that should drive and motivate what the little capillary of the root does. And this humanity is in a fight for its life. The human spirit, the conflict, the eternal conflict for the soul of humanity, as we said, is reaching its climax. We are in the end game. We are in the end days. The Kali Yuga is it's gonna be coming to a head this decade and the next and the next. So in that struggle, there will be much suffering, much sacrifice. Can we harness that suffering and sacrifice and struggle as a focal point to inspire and unite others? Can we take a lesson and learn from the example of all of the bodhisattvas, of the Christ itself, of the spark of unconditional love, and all of the ways in which it manifests and expresses itself, including USA for Africa, including the people of Newfoundland, and everyone who stands up to be counted and asks, what can I do? What will I do when they see suffering and injustice and sacrifice and struggle? And they're inspired to get up and unite others in order to make a difference